Hi, this is Madeline Nearing. This is my second case study. So Mrs. Smith is teaching synonyms and antonyms to her class using the Common Core standard that states that use the relationship between particular words to better understand each of the word. Mrs. Smith wants to give an exit slip each day as a formative assessment. She is currently using a paper-based exit slip but would like to find something that works a little easier and better than paper. Some goals that Mrs. Smith has are she wants to be able to read the responses and use that information to help her finalize her lessons plans for the next day. At the end of the week, she wants to be able to track how individual students and how the class have grown in their understanding as a whole. She wants to give feedback to individual students and tell them how they are doing understanding each lesson so they know what they need to work on for the next lessons. Some challenges are it's difficult to precisely evaluate students' understanding because they usually don't write much. It's also difficult to get an understanding of trends and patterns in students because it is difficult to keep in mind with the 20 individual sheets of paper. It is difficult to track individual and class growth over the week. And it is also difficult to get students' feedback about their understanding after an individual lesson. So, I think a great technology for Mrs. Smith would be Google Forms. So you're just going to search Google Forms, and this is what it's going to look like when you get into it. It's going to give you a bunch of template options. So if you go up in this right-hand corner, there's Template Gallery, and it will give you personal, work, and education. So it has an exit ticket template already, so we can use that, or we can create a new one. We're just going to go ahead and use this one to start. Alright, so it has name and email as the first ones, but you're going to want to keep on there so that you can look at the responses based on an individual student. Alright, so it gives you 3 example questions. It gives you what's one important thing you learned in class today? Did you feel prepared for today's lesson? Why or why not? And what would help make today's lesson more effective? What I'm also going to add is another one that says today's date. You're just going to use the same. Mrs. Smith could use the same form every single time, and they're just going to choose what the date is. So then Mrs. Smith will be able to separate these either by day, student, and whatnot. And she could also add more questions if she wanted. Usually formative assessments are 3 to 5. So if she wanted to add more, she would hit this plus to add a question here. And it'll give you multiple options. It'll give you multiple choice, short answer, paragraph, multiple checkboxes. This is the one where you can choose multiple answers. It'll let you add a title and a description for the different questions. It'll let you add in images, videos. And then when you go up here, you can change the theme if you want. You can just make it more fun, change the background, the color. You can upload an image for the header, change the text for the different header, the questions. This is what you're going to hit when you want to go and look at the final product to see what it looks like. So when you hit preview, it's going to show you what it's going to look like on their end. So, your name, your email, today's date, and then your 3 questions. And then when you hit submit, it'll make these questions required so that the students have to answer them. Alright, so then when we go into the responses, once you get responses, it'll let you section it by like individual or date or question, and you'll be able to see all the different responses. When you go into settings, you can assign point values or set answers. This we wouldn't really do for a formative assessment since we're not really going to be giving the students a grade on this. But however, this is an option if you did want to give a grade. So under the responses, you can hit this button and it'll automatically collect the email addresses. You won't even have to add that as a question. And you can have them send the students a response of their questions. They don't necessarily need that. Presentation. This is how it'll change what it looks like for the student view. So you can add a progress bar. You can shuffle the question order. This is more for if you're giving out actual quizzes that were going to be graded. You can also view results summary. This will share the results with all the students that respond. This could be useful if you want to see if you want the students to be able to see what other students are saying about the questions and what they're needing more help with too, but you don't have to turn that on either. This is another place to be able to turn on to collect email addresses by default. And this is where you go and you want to make sure you hit this to make the questions all required by default. You want all the students to be able to answer all the questions. When you go up here to the top left, you can add your exit tickets to a certain folder, or you can star them, and this will just help you find them easier in your Google Forms. And then in the top right, it'll have undo and redo. This is your back buttons. And then okay, up in this top right corner, you also have this 3 dots. You can make a copy of the form, so you have 2. You can delete it. You can get a link to send it to the students. You can print it out. You can add collaborators. You wouldn't necessarily need to do this, but if you had if Mrs. Smith had a student teacher or something that she wanted to help on the exit ticket form, you could add a collaborator there. And this is where you're going to go when the form is all finished, is this purple send button. So you can send via email, get the link, or get the HTML. You can really do it any way that you think is easiest, but probably the email will be the best if you just do a email, or the link if you do a post it on your class website or whatever. Okay, so this Google Forms will allow it to be completely customizable, and you can have multiple choice questions if needed. This will help with the challenge where students don't usually write much, so it's hard to precisely evaluate students. So if you were to make a multiple choice question, you'd have to do specific answers for the multiple choice questions. Google Forms will also give you all the responses together. This helps with the challenge of being able to track individual and class growth over the week, because you'll have all the responses right then and there. Google Forms also helps with getting students feedback about their understanding after an individual lesson, because teachers will have all of the students' answers right there, and they could email them. The last thing is it's difficult to get an understanding of trends and patterns in students because it's difficult to keep it in mind with the 20 individual sheets of paper. This right here, it'll make it a lot easier because you'll have all the responses right there, and you'll be able to see the trends, and you won't have to shuffle through 20 sheets of paper. So to go over the goals, Mrs. Smith wants to read students' responses and use that information to help her finalize the plans for the next day's lesson. She'll have all of her responses right there on Google Forms. At the end of the week, she wants to be able to track the individual students and the class as a whole, so she can separate it by day, question, or student, and she'll be able to see all of the responses there. And then she'll be able to give feedback. And yeah, overall, I just really think that Google Forms is a great option for Mrs. Smith to have for creating exit slips for her class.